Day 104. 1 Samuel 25-26. When Samuel died, all Israel gathered to mourn for him, and they buried him at his home in Ramah. Then David set out and went down to the wilderness of Paran. Now there was a man in Maon whose business was in Carmel. He was a very wealthy man with 1,000 goats and 3,000 sheep, which he was shearing in Carmel. His name was Nabal, and his wife's name was Abigail. She was an intelligent and beautiful woman, but her husband, a Calebite, was harsh and evil in his dealings. While David was in the wilderness, he heard that Nabal was shearing sheep. So David sent 10 young men and instructed them, "Go up to Nabal at Carmel. Greet him in my name and say to him, 'Long life to you, and peace to you and your house and to all that belongs to you. Now I hear that it is time for shearing. When your shepherds were with us, we did not harass them, and nothing of theirs was missing the whole time they were in Carmel. Ask your young men, and they will tell you. So let my young men find favor with you, for we have come on the day of a feast. Please give whatever you can afford to your servants and to your son David.'" When David's young men arrived, they relayed all these words to Nabal on behalf of David. Then they waited. But Nabal asked them, "Who is David? Who is the son of Jesse? Many servants these days are breaking away from their masters. Why should I take my bread and water and the meat I have slaughtered for my shearers, and give them to these men whose origin I do not know?" So David's men turned around and went back, and they relayed to him all these words. And David said to his men, "Strap on your swords." So David and all his men put on their swords, and about 400 men followed David, while 200 stayed with the supplies. Meanwhile, one of Nabal's young men informed Nabal's wife Abigail, "Look, David sent messengers from the wilderness to greet our master, but he scolded them. Yet these men were very good to us. When we were in the field, we were not harassed, and nothing of ours went missing the whole time we lived among them. They were a wall around us, both day and night, the whole time we were herding our sheep near them. Now consider carefully what you must do, because disaster looms over our master and all his household. For he is such a scoundrel that nobody can speak to him." Then Abigail hurried and took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 butchered sheep, 5 seahs of roasted grain, 100 clusters of raisins, and 200 cakes of figs. She loaded them on donkeys and said to her young men, "Go ahead of me. I will be right behind you." But she did not tell her husband Nabal. As Abigail came riding her donkey into a mountain ravine, she saw David and his men coming down toward her, and she met them. Now David had just finished saying, "In vain I have protected all that belonged to this man in the wilderness. Nothing that belongs to him has gone missing, yet he has paid me back evil for good. May God punish David, and ever so severely, if I let one of Nabal's men survive until morning." When Abigail saw David, she quickly got off the donkey, fell face down, and bowed before him. She fell at his feet and said, "My lord, may the blame be on me alone, but please let your servant speak to you, hear the words of your servant. My lord should pay no attention to the scoundrel Nabal, for he lives up to his name means fool, and folly accompanies him. I, your servant, did not see my lord's young men whom you sent. Now, my lord, as surely as the Lord lives and you yourself live, the Lord has held you back from coming to bloodshed and avenging yourself with your own hand. May your enemies and those who seek harm for my lord be like Nabal. Now let this gift your servant has brought to my lord be given to the young men who follow you. Please forgive your servant's offense, for the Lord will surely make a lasting dynasty for my lord, because he fights the Lord's battles. May no evil be found in you as long as you live. And should someone pursue you and seek your life, then the life of my lord will be bound securely by the Lord your God in the bundle of the living. But he shall fling away the lives of your enemies like stones from a sling. When the Lord has done for my lord all the good he promised, and when he has appointed you ruler over Israel, then my lord will have no remorse or guilt of conscience over needless bloodshed and revenge. And when the Lord has dealt well with my lord, may you remember your maidservant." Then David said to Abigail, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who sent you to meet me this day. Blessed is your discernment, and blessed are you, because today you kept me from bloodshed and from avenging myself by my own hand. Otherwise, as surely as the Lord, the God of Israel, lives, who has restrained me from harming you, if you had not come quickly to meet me, then surely no male belonging to Nabal would have been left alive by morning light." Then David accepted from her hand what she had brought him. And he said to her, "Go home in peace." See, I have heeded your voice and granted your request. When Abigail returned to Nabal, there he was in the house, holding a feast fit for a king, in high spirits and very drunk. So she told him nothing until morning light. In the morning when Nabal was sober, his wife told him about these events, and his heart failed within him and he became like a stone. About 10 days later, the Lord struck Nabal dead. On hearing that Nabal was dead, David said, "Blessed be the Lord, who has upheld my cause against the reproach of Nabal and has restrained his servant from evil. For the Lord has brought the wickedness of Nabal down upon his own head." Then David sent word to Abigail, asking for her in marriage. When his servants came to Abigail at Carmel, they said, "David has sent us to take you as his wife." She arose, then bowed face down and said, "Here is your maidservant, ready to serve and to wash the feet of my Lord's servants." So Abigail hurried and got on a donkey. And attended by 5 of her maidens, she followed David's messengers and became his wife. David had also married Ahinoam of Jezreel. So she and Abigail were both his wives. But Saul had given his daughter Michal, David's wife, to Palti son of Laish, who was from Galim. Then the Ziphites came to Saul at Gibeah and said, "Is not David hiding on the hill of Hachilah, opposite Shimon?" So Saul, accompanied by 3,000 chosen men of Israel, went down to the wilderness of Ziph to search for David there. Saul camped beside the road at the hill of Hachilah opposite Shimon, but David was living in the wilderness. When he realized that Saul had followed him there, David sent out spies to verify that Saul had arrived. Then David set out and went to the place where Saul had camped. He saw the place where Saul and Abner son of Ner, the general of his army, had lain down. Saul was lying inside the inner circle of the camp, with the troops camped around him. And David asked Ahimelech the Hittite and Abishai son of Zeruiah, Job's brother, "Who will go down with me to Saul in the camp?" "I will go with you," answered Abishai. That night David and Abishai came to the troops, and Saul was lying there asleep in the inner circle of the camp, with his spear stuck in the ground by his head. And Abner and the troops were lying around him. Abishai said to David, "Today God has delivered your enemy into your hand. Now, therefore, please let me thrust the spear through him into the ground with one stroke. I will not need to strike him twice." But David said to Abishai, "Do not destroy him, for who can lift a hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless?" David added, "As surely as the Lord lives, the Lord himself will strike him down, either his day will come and he will die, or he will go into battle and perish. But the Lord forbid that I should stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed. Instead, take the spear and water jug by his head, and let us go." So David took the spear and water jug by Saul's head, and they departed. No one saw them or knew about it, nor did anyone wake up, they all remained asleep, because a deep sleep from the Lord had fallen on them. Then David crossed to the other side and stood atop the mountain at a distance, there was a wide gulf between them. And David shouted to the troops and to Abner son of Ner, "Will you not answer me, Abner? Who calls to the king?" Abner replied. So David said to Abner, "You are a man, aren't you? And who in Israel is your equal? Why then did you not protect your lord the king when one of the people came to destroy him? This thing you have done is not good. As surely as the Lord lives, all of you deserve to die, since you did not protect your lord, the Lord's anointed. Now look around. Where are the king's spear and water jug that were by his head?" Then Saul recognized David's voice and asked, "Is that your voice, David my son?" "It is my voice, my lord and king," David said. And he continued, "Why is my lord pursuing his servant? What have I done? What evil is in my hand? Now please, may my lord the king hear the words of his servant. If the Lord has stirred you up against me, then may he accept an offering. But if men have done it, may they be cursed in the presence of the Lord. For today they have driven me away from sharing in the inheritance of the Lord, saying, 'Go, serve other gods.' So do not let my blood fall to the ground far from the presence of the Lord. For the king of Israel has come out to look for a flea, like one who hunts a partridge in the mountains." Then Saul replied, "I have sinned. Come back, David my son. I will never harm you again, because today you considered my life precious. I have played the fool and have committed a grave error. Here is the king's spear," David answered. "Let one of the young men come over and get it. May the Lord repay every man for his righteousness and faithfulness. For the Lord delivered you into my hand today, but I would not stretch out my hand against the Lord's anointed." As surely as I valued your life today, so may the Lord value my life and rescue me from all trouble. Saul said to him, May you be blessed, David my son. You will accomplish great things and will surely prevail. So David went on his way, and Saul returned home. Luke 12 verses 32 to 59. Do not be afraid, little flock, for your Father is pleased to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give to the poor. Provide yourselves with purses that will not wear out, an inexhaustible treasure in heaven, where no thief approaches and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Be dressed for service and keep your lamps burning. Then you will be like servants waiting for their master to return from the wedding banquet, so that when he comes and knocks, they can open the door for him at once. Blessed are those servants whom the master finds on watch when he returns. Truly I tell you, he will dress himself to serve and will have them recline at the table, and he himself will come and wait on them. Even if he comes in the second or third watch of the night and finds them alert, those servants will be blessed. But understand this, if the homeowner had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour you do not expect. Lord, said Peter, are you addressing this parable to us, or to everyone else as well? And the Lord answered, Who then is the faithful and wise manager, whom the master puts in charge of his servants to give them their portion at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whose master finds him doing so when he returns. Truly I tell you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But suppose that servant says in his heart, My master will be a long time in coming, and he begins to beat the menservants and maidservants, and to eat and drink and get drunk. The master of that servant will come on a day he does not expect and at an hour he does not anticipate. Then he will cut him to pieces and assign him a place with the unbelievers. That servant who knows his master's will but does not get ready or follow his instructions will be beaten with many blows. But the one who unknowingly does things worthy of punishment will be beaten with few blows. From everyone who has been given much, much will be required, and from him who has been entrusted with much, even more will be demanded. I have come to ignite a fire on the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. But I have a baptism to undergo, and how distressed I am until it is accomplished. Do you think that I have come to bring peace to the earth? No, I tell you, but division. From now on, 5 in one household will be divided, 3 against 2 and 2 against 3. They will be divided, father against son and son against father, mother against daughter and daughter against mother, mother-in-law against daughter-in-law and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. Then Jesus said to the crowds, As soon as you see a cloud rising in the west, you say, A shower is coming, and that is what happens. And when the south wind blows, you say, It will be hot, and it is. You hypocrites! You know how to interpret the appearance of the earth and sky. Why don't you know how to interpret the present time? And why don't you judge for yourselves what is right? Make every effort to reconcile with your adversary while you are on your way to the magistrate. Otherwise, he may drag you off to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and the officer may throw you into prison. I tell you, you will not get out until you have paid the very last penny.